We were told that I would go completely blind by January 2008, so my 17-year-old self and my 18-year-old boyfriend decided that as a last step we would get married in December of 2007 before my vision completely disappeared, so that I could at least see my wedding before I lost all my vision. Okay, so hi, my name's Richelle. I'm 26 years old. I was born and raised in Australia. When I was 18, I married my husband Michael, and we currently have 3 kids together. My brother was born with missing arms and legs, and a part of the compensation they got from the hospital because of his disability is they allowed their son, my brother, and their daughter, myself, to get some free health checks at the hospital. So my parents were already struggling quite a lot with the discovery that their son was very heavily handicapped and would have issues all the way through his life. And then unfortunately, when we got to the optometrist, he informed them that not only was their son disabled, I was as well, and that I had a vision impairment called retinitis pigmentosa. The disease itself normally kicks in around about your teenage years, and if you're lucky, you go completely blind at 40. Unfortunately, I'm not so lucky. The disease kicked in for me from the day I was born. So by the time I was 2 years old, I only had, by the time I was 2 years old, I lost all my night vision. And by the time I was 10, I was considered legally blind, so I'd lost 50% of my vision. I knew I was going to become completely blind at one point, and I was just determined to make sure that didn't stop me from living my life. So once we were married, my husband continued on at uni, and I went into the workforce. And so, yeah, I worked really hard at several different jobs, but I obviously did find that as the vision deteriorated, so did a lot of the tolerance with my employers. That was a pretty hard thing to come to terms with, because it wasn't necessarily my fault that all these mistakes were happening. I found one of my first experiences in working was quite challenging emotionally. I was doing very tiny mistakes which really didn't matter in the whole scheme of things, but my employers were not so kind. And once they eventually let me go from that job after about a year of stressful, very stressful and anxiety on my part, when it came to going to the workforce again, it was automatic that I would go back to that anxious feeling of, is what I'm going to do good enough? Do I need to know everything, and do I need to perform at 110% at all times? Because that was what it was expected from my last job, and with a disability that's almost impossible. And I found that a lot of people were much more accepting of my disability, but because of that first initial employer, it was very hard for me to accept that, and very hard for me to be able to accept my own performance. I even still to this day need to do 110%, otherwise I don't feel fulfilled. And if I don't do that, I get anxious that maybe I'm not doing good enough, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, maybe I should just, not work and not study and just give up and, just not make it so hard for myself. So those things kind of, they do get to you eventually, that other people don't find you as useful. But really, honestly, it's never stopped me. I've done several different jobs. I've had 3 children. I've moved country. I've studied online. You know, I've done all these things to make sure that my life stays as full and as active as it can be, with the restriction of not being able to see. But also being mindful that, you know, not to bite off too much and not to do too much that is going to, you know, ultimately not work out. Even though the disability is there and it is a part of who I am, I don't let it be me completely. We work together to kind of keep going and live as normal a life as possible. It doesn't mean that your life is over or that it's any less important, but it does mean that you have to work harder to make things happen for yourself, and you need to prove that you are still in control of your life, and that is scary for most people to be able to accept and to be able to do. But it's just so much more rewarding. It's so much nicer to be able to live like that than